Let's go back to the 6th century BC. Coinage is a brand new technology, and the kings of Lydia, credited as the inventors of coinage, are slowly starting to refine what a coin looks like. So from a little blob of gold mixed with silver with nothing but a punch mark on it, coinage slowly started developing into something recognizable for us as a coin with actual designs in them. Today, let's take a look at some of these earliest coins. They still look like blobs of metal, but now they show lovely mythological designs and a level of refinement much better than the first proto-coins. Let's meet the stater. But first, it's good that we contextualize. We're on the 6th century BC, and coinage has spread all over Western Anatolia. Each city issues their own coin designs, although most adhere to the Lydian weight standard, allowing them to facilitate commerce between them. So a base denomination is established, called the stater, at a weight of around 16 modern grams, which will be the base for the biggest coin available. And this is the denomination we're going to be looking at today, the stater. So at 16 grams of electrum, this was a spectacular amount of money back then. Nearly 6 months' wages for a laborer. And from the many cities in the area that issued this stater, one of the most famous, and arguably the one that produced the most spectacular of these coins, was the city of Kisikus. Between 550 and 340 BC, so a very long stretch of time, the city apparently changed its designs annually, resulting in an incredibly varied series. This served multiple purposes. To call attention to the issuing city itself, as these coins were prestige pieces, to make counterfeiting harder, as it was much harder to fake a coin with a nicely sculpted design made by a talented engraver than to copy a featureless ball of metal, and one could argue as a sign of piety, of religious devotion. You see, precious metals had a certain religious connotation back then, given their beauty and just how different they looked compared to the other materials of everyday life. So it would be of good taste to put religious and mythological symbols on them instead of images of a mortal man. Images of living people would only come much, much later. And this is what we see in these coins. Mythological creatures, animals, gods and goddesses, heroes. The Kisikus really did a great job on making this very diverse coinage. The only design that sort of like repeats itself every time was the tunifish, which was the symbol of the city, so it was integrated somehow on the main design, which changed every year. As for the reverse of these coins, we can always find an ink sponge. I've brought 4 coins for us to enjoy today, so let's head right to them. So we start with an early piece, struck between 550 and 450 BC. We have this rather pale example here, which features a sphinx. And it's a different sphinx for what we think about the Egyptian one, although it has some similarities to it. The Greek sphinx had a body of a lion, the head of a woman, but it also had wings. I love how the bust on these coins has the typical archaic face. Artwork from this period seems to show people with these very elongated eyes and this little smirk on their faces, like if they're reminding you of something cool that just happened to them the other day. And under the sphinx, as the symbol of Kisikus, the tunifish. Heading to the reverse, notice the very dramatic tears on opposite sides of the flan. Whoever struck this coin did it with a particularly strong blow, almost whacking the coin in half. We then go to another early piece, so this one also dated between 550 and 450 BC. Some of the creatures featured in these coins might be hard to recognize for those not very into Greek mythology, but that is an easy one to guess. Here we have Cerberus, the massive 3-headed dog that protected the doors of the underworld, preventing the dead from coming back to the land of the living. So cool, it's my favorite one. And also really nice anatomy to the Cerberus. Although we only see 2 heads in here, maybe one was supposed to be exactly behind the other, we'll never know. And under the dog, of course, the tunny fish. On the reverse of this one, we can clearly notice that the square punches were now made differently. They weren't just punches. They have some separation between them and a series of slopes, making it a little bit harder for unexperienced engravers to fake them. So let's head for the next piece. Here now we have a goddess. This is Persephone, the wife of Hades, the god of the underworld. Persephone had a lighter tone to her husband, representing rebirth and the coming of spring after winter. So she's raising a hand, probably announcing the coming of the next season. And interestingly, now the engravers decided that instead of simply adding the tunny fish to the design, they would integrate it with the design. So Persephone now, with the other hand, is actually carrying the fish by its tail. Another really lovely show of attention to detail can be seen on Persephone's head. Here we have a kekryphalos, a small piece of fabric Greek women used on her head to help tie her hair. The artist who made this dye must have seen women around wearing it. It was a common piece of clothing. So he translated the headpiece to the goddess. So it's a cool little example of how something one would see every day in the ancient world actually reflected into their art, and we get to enjoy it today since it was struck with that little detail. And for our last piece, we have a lion. The lion has always been a symbol of majesty and power around the Eastern Mediterranean. Although we think of lions being only present in Africa, back then you could find lions on a much larger area, which included all of the Middle East and Anatolia, where Kisikus was located. So here we have this very nicely sculpted lion on the process of taking a bite out of some animal's leg. As you can see, the flesh is being stretched out of the leg or something like this. Under the design, we see the tunny fish once again. This actually makes a little weird effect. When I first saw this coin, I thought the lion was taking a bite out of the fish. I wish I had footage of all of the designs made by the city to show you today, but for now, these four will have to do. Have you got a coin struck in Kisikus or a coin featuring a mythological creature you really like? Let us know in the comment section down below. I hope you all enjoyed it, happy collecting, and I'll see you soon.